Dr. Lisa Harper stepped off the transport shuttle and felt her boots touch the metal floor of the Galactic Medical Consortium station. The artificial gravity felt strange after the long journey from Earth. She carried her medical bag in one hand and looked around at the massive space station that orbited the planet Kepler 442b. The walls were white and clean, with soft blue lights that made everything look peaceful. Dr. Kevin Price walked beside her, carrying his own equipment. He was a trauma surgeon who had worked in hospitals for 15 years. Lisa was a combat medic who had served with the 82nd Airborne Division. They were the first humans to join the Alien Medical Exchange Program. The station was huge. Long corridors stretched in every direction. Through the large windows, Lisa could see the brown and green planet below. Ships from different alien species moved slowly around the station like metal fish in space. A tall figure approached them. It looked like a person but was made of crystal. The being was 7 feet tall with skin that sparkled like diamonds. Its face was smooth and had no nose, just small holes for breathing. 2 large silver eyes looked at them with curiosity. "Welcome, humans," the being said in perfect English. "I am Veltar of the Zenth people. I am a medical officer here." Another alien came forward. This one had 6 arms and looked like a giant spider that walked upright. Its skin was purple and smooth. Multiple eyes covered its head like jewels. When it moved, it made soft clicking sounds. "I am Zixtha of the Corvani," the 6-armed being said. "I am a healer. We are very excited to learn from your species." Lisa and Kevin introduced themselves. They followed their hosts through the station corridors. Other aliens watched them as they passed. Some looked like tall birds with feathers that changed colors. Others resembled walking trees with leaves instead of hair. They entered a large medical bay filled with amazing technology. Floating beds moved patients through the air without touching them. Machines scanned bodies with beams of light that showed every organ inside. Healing chambers filled with glowing liquid could fix broken bones in minutes. "This is incredible," Kevin said, looking at a device that could regrow lost fingers. Veltar smiled, which looked strange on a crystal face. "We have spent thousands of years perfecting our healing arts. We eliminate pain completely during treatment. Our methods cause no discomfort to patients." Zixtha moved gracefully on 6 legs to another machine. "This device can repair any injury without cutting the body. We never cause harm to heal someone. That would be wrong." Lisa set down her medical bag and opened it. Inside were basic tools that looked primitive compared to the alien technology. Bandages, syringes, scissors, and metal instruments filled the bag. The aliens gathered around to look. "These are our field medical tools," Lisa explained. "We use them to treat injuries in combat zones." She pulled out a tourniquet, which was a thick strap with a metal bar. "This stops bleeding from major wounds. You wrap it around an arm or leg and twist it tight." Veltar stepped back. "You deliberately cut off blood flow? That could damage the limb." "Sometimes we have to hurt someone a little to save their life," Lisa said. She demonstrated on her own arm, showing how to apply the tourniquet. "If someone is bleeding to death, this keeps them alive until we can get them to surgery." The crystal being's silver eyes grew wide. "But the pain, the damage to healthy tissue." Kevin opened his surgical kit. Inside were sharp knives, clamps, and saws for cutting bone. "These are for emergency surgery. Sometimes we have to operate immediately, even in terrible conditions." He picked up a scalpel and showed how surgeons make cuts in the body. "We might have to amputate a limb to save someone's life, or cut open their chest to fix their heart." Zixtha made a sound like breaking glass. All 6 arms trembled. "You cut into living beings? You remove parts of their bodies?" "When we have to," Kevin said. "If someone's leg is crushed beyond repair, we remove it so they can live. If they have appendicitis, we cut it out before it kills them." Lisa pulled out a chest tube insertion kit. "This is for when someone's lung collapses. We push this tube between their ribs and into their chest cavity." She showed them a large needle and explained how combat medics had to sometimes perform this procedure on battlefields with soldiers screaming and explosions happening around them. Veltar sat down heavily on a nearby chair. The crystal beings Skin had turned from clear to cloudy white. You cause such trauma to the patient, how do they survive the procedure itself? Humans are tough, Lisa said. We can handle a lot of pain and damage. Our bodies heal from injuries that would kill other species. Kevin showed them pictures on his tablet from Earth hospitals, surgery rooms with blood on the tables, patients with tubes coming out of their bodies, and doctors working for hours to save lives. We learned to do this because we had to, he explained. Earth is a dangerous planet. We fight wars, we have accidents, we get diseases that try to kill us, so we learned to fight back with whatever tools we had. The aliens looked shocked at the images. Some showed battlefield medics treating wounded soldiers while bombs exploded nearby. Others showed emergency room doctors performing surgery on car accident victims. You work in such chaos, Zixta whispered. How do you concentrate? How do you make the right decisions? Practice, Lisa said. We train in the worst conditions possible. We learn to work when we're scared, tired, and under pressure. Because real emergencies don't wait for perfect conditions. She told them about training exercises where medics had to treat fake casualties while instructors fired blanks and set off smoke grenades. About how they practiced surgery while loud music played and people shouted at them. Veltar stood up slowly, still looking pale. Your methods seem so violent, so primitive. Surely there must be gentler ways to heal. Maybe for you, Kevin said. But humans don't have time for gentle when someone is dying. We do whatever works fastest, even if it's ugly. The aliens exchanged looks that showed they were deeply troubled by what they had learned. Their advanced technology seemed wonderful, but it required perfect conditions and lots of time. Human medicine was brutal and fast, designed for the worst possible situations. As the day ended, Lisa and Kevin could see that their new alien colleagues were struggling to understand human medical philosophy. The idea that healing, sometimes, required causing pain was completely foreign to them. But they would learn soon enough how valuable human methods could be when everything went wrong. 3 weeks had passed since Lisa and Kevin arrived at the medical station. They spent their days learning about alien healing technology while trying to explain human medicine to their hosts. The aliens remained shocked by human methods, but they were curious enough to keep asking questions. Veltar had started wearing protective gloves after watching Lisa demonstrate wound cleaning procedures. The crystal beings still flinched every time the humans showed them anything involving cutting or pain. Zixta had developed a nervous habit of clicking its mandibles whenever Kevin talked about surgery. The morning started like any other. Lisa was in the training bay showing a group of young alien medical students how to splint broken bones. She used a volunteer's arm to demonstrate proper technique when the station's emergency alarm began blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the medical bay. An automated voice spoke in multiple alien languages before switching to English. Emergency medical response required. Mining colony Theta 7 under attack. All available medical personnel report to Shuttle Bay 3 immediately. Veltar rushed over to them, moving faster than Lisa had ever seen the tall being move. There has been an attack on one of the mining colonies. Separatist forces have bombed the main facility. We need all medical teams ready for deployment. Kevin was already packing his surgical kit. How many casualties? Unknown, Zixta said, all 6 arms working to gather medical supplies. The mining colony has 300 workers. Communications are damaged, so we cannot get accurate reports. Within 20 minutes, 3 medical ships launched from the station. Lisa and Kevin rode with the alien teams aboard a Zenth vessel filled with advanced medical equipment. The ship had floating stretchers, portable healing chambers, and machines that could diagnose patients from across the room. The journey to the mining colony took 2 hours. During the flight, the aliens organized their equipment according to strict protocols. Everything had to be sterilized and arranged in perfect order. They set up mobile hospitals with clean white walls and filtered air systems. How long will it take to set up your medical facilities? Lisa asked Veltar. Approximately 4 hours, the crystal being replied. We must ensure proper sterilization and environmental controls before we can begin treating patients. Kevin looked up from checking his instruments. 4 hours? People could die waiting that long. Better to do things correctly than to risk infection or complications, Veltar said firmly. Proper medical care requires proper preparation. When they reached the mining colony, Lisa understood why the aliens were concerned about preparation. The main facility looked like it had been hit by several bombs. Smoke rose from collapsed buildings. Pieces of metal and rock covered the landing area. Emergency lights flickered through the dust and debris. The alien ships landed in a clear area outside the damage zone. Medical teams began unloading their equipment and setting up sterile treatment areas. Robots started constructing temporary buildings with clean walls and air filtration systems. Lisa grabbed her medical bag and started walking toward the ruined buildings. Kevin followed with his surgical kit. "Where are you going?" Veltar called after them. "To find the wounded," Lisa shouted back. "But we have not finished setting up the treatment facilities," Shikstha protested. "People are trapped in there right now," Kevin said. "They can't wait for your facilities." Lisa reached the edge of the collapsed main building and heard voices calling for help from inside. She pulled out a flashlight and crawled through a gap in the debris. The space was dark and filled with dust. Metal beams had fallen at strange angles, creating small pockets where people might be alive. She found the first casualty 20 feet inside the wreckage. A human miner was trapped under a fallen support beam. His right leg was crushed and bleeding heavily. He was conscious but in shock. "Help me," the man whispered. "I can't feel my leg." Lisa quickly examined the injury. The leg was destroyed beyond repair, but the man was losing blood fast. She pulled out a tourniquet and wrapped it around his thigh, just above the damage. "This is going to hurt," she warned him, then twisted the metal bar to tighten the strap. The man screamed as the tourniquet cut off blood flow to his leg, but the bleeding stopped. Outside, she could hear Veltar calling for her to return. The alien medical teams were still setting up their equipment. Lisa ignored them and kept crawling deeper into the wreckage. She found 6 more casualties in the next hour. A woman with a punctured lung who needed immediate chest tube insertion. A man with severe burns who was going into shock. A young worker whose arm was pinned under machinery and would need amputation to free him. Lisa treated each one with basic field medicine. She used her knife to cut a hole between the woman's ribs and inserted a plastic tube to re-inflate her lung. She started an IV line on the burn victim and gave him pain medication. For the trapped worker, she made the hardest decision of all. "I'm going to have to cut off your arm to get you out," she told him. "If I don't, you'll die here." The man nodded weakly. Lisa gave him morphine and used a medical saw to amputate his arm above the elbow. The procedure was bloody and brutal, but it freed him from the machinery. Kevin had found his own patients in another section of the building. He set up a makeshift operating room in what used to be the facility's cafeteria. Using tables from the mess hall and flashlights for illumination, he began performing emergency surgery on the most critical cases. His first patient was a miner who had been hit by shrapnel. A piece of metal had penetrated the man's chest and was pressing against his heart. Kevin had to operate immediately, or the patient would die. With only basic tools and poor lighting, Kevin cut open the man's chest and carefully removed the shrapnel. He used clamps to stop the bleeding and stitched up damaged blood vessels. The entire procedure took place on a cafeteria table while dust fell from the ceiling above. Meanwhile, the alien medical teams had finished setting up their sterile facilities outside. They sent robots into the wreckage to locate casualties and bring them out for proper treatment. But the robots moved slowly and could not reach many of the trapped people. Veltar finally entered the building to find Lisa and Kevin. The crystal. Being was wearing a full environmental suit to protect against contamination. When Veltar saw what the humans were doing, the alien skin turned white with shock. "This is barbaric," Veltar said, watching Kevin operate on the cafeteria table. "You are performing surgery in completely unsterile conditions. The patient would be dead before we could move him to your facility," Kevin replied without looking up from his work. "Sometimes you have to make do with what you have." Lisa emerged from a collapsed tunnel carrying an unconscious woman. Her uniform was covered in blood and dirt. "I need help with this one. She has internal bleeding." Veltar stared at the scene around them. Human medics were working throughout the ruins, treating patients in impossible conditions. They used construction tools as medical instruments and furniture as operating tables. It looked like chaos, but people were being saved. "How can you work like this?" the alien asked. "How can you concentrate with all this noise and danger?" "Practice," Lisa said simply. She laid the woman on a piece of clean metal sheeting and began examining her injuries. "When you train for war, you learn to work anywhere." As the rescue operation continued into the night, more casualties were brought out of the wreckage. The alien medical facilities treated patients who could be safely moved, while the humans worked in the ruins to save those who could not be moved. By dawn, they had saved 43 people who would have died without immediate treatment. The alien medics watched in amazement as human medicine proved its worth in the worst possible conditions. The rescue operation had been going for 18 hours when Veltar finally confronted Lisa about her methods. The crystal being found her in what used to be the mining facility's workshop, where she was treating a worker whose skull had been cracked by falling debris. Lisa had cleaned the man's head wound and was preparing to stitch it closed when Veltar approached. The alien's normally clear skin had turned a cloudy gray color, which Lisa had learned meant the being was upset. "Dr. Harper, I must speak with you about your treatment methods," Veltar said, trying to keep its voice calm. "What you are doing here goes against every principle of proper medical care." Lisa continued working on her patient, using a curved needle to close the head wound. "This man needs his scalp stitched, or he'll get an infection." "But you are causing him additional pain," Veltar protested. "And you are working in completely unsterile conditions. There is dirt everywhere, no proper lighting, and no environmental controls." "He's already hurt," Lisa said, finishing the last stitch. "A little more pain now prevents a lot more suffering later, and he'd be dead if we waited to move him to your clean facility." The alien watched as Lisa bandaged the man's head using supplies from her field kit. Everything looked rough and improvised compared to the smooth, painless treatments the aliens used. "I do not understand your philosophy," Veltar said. "How can healing involve causing more harm? How can you deliberately inflict pain on someone who is already suffering?" Lisa packed up her medical supplies and looked at the alien. "Because sometimes there's no other choice. When someone is dying, you do whatever it takes to keep them alive, even if it hurts." She led Veltar to another area, where Kevin was working on a more serious case. A young miner had been trapped under machinery for several hours before they found him. His right leg was completely crushed and infected tissue was already spreading up his thigh. Kevin had set up his surgical area on a workbench, using power tools from the maintenance shop as medical instruments. He was preparing to amputate the man's leg to save his life. "The infection will kill him if we don't remove the damaged tissue," Kevin explained to a group of alien observers who had gathered to watch. "We have to cut off his leg above the infection site." Shikstha made a sound like breaking glass. All 6 of the Corvani's arms were trembling. "You are going to cut off a healthy limb? Why not use regeneration therapy or cellular reconstruction?" "Because those treatments take days or weeks," Kevin said. "This man has hours before the infection reaches his bloodstream and kills him." He activated a power saw that he had sterilized with alcohol. The tool was designed for cutting metal pipes, but it would work for removing the damaged leg. Several of the alien medics turned away as Kevin began the amputation procedure. Shikstha watched for 30 seconds before collapsing onto the floor. The 6-armed being had fainted from shock at seeing Kevin cut through bone with construction equipment. "This is madness," Veltar said, backing away from the surgical area. "You are mutilating that person. How is this healing?" Kevin continued working, focused completely on his patient. "He'll live without this leg. He'll die if I leave it attached. Sometimes the choice is that simple." Lisa helped carry the unconscious Jixtha outside where other Corvani medics were waiting. The species was known for their extreme empathy, which made them excellent healers but also vulnerable to emotional overload. When Jixtha woke up an hour later, the being was still shaking. "How do you bear it?" the Corvani asked Lisa. "How do you cause such trauma and still call yourself a healer?" "Because I've seen what happens when you don't act fast enough," Lisa replied. "I've watched people die because we were too gentle, too slow, or too afraid to do what was necessary." She sat down next to the alien and tried to explain human medical philosophy. Your species developed on peaceful worlds. You had time to perfect gentle healing methods. Humans come from a planet where everything tries to kill us. Lisa pulled out her tablet and showed Zixtha pictures from Earth. Wild animals attacking humans, natural disasters destroying cities, diseases that could kill millions of people, wars where soldiers were injured far from any hospital. We learned to save lives in the worst possible conditions because we had to, she continued. Earth doesn't give us the luxury of perfect sterile environments and unlimited time. She showed the alien videos of combat medics treating wounded soldiers while under enemy fire. Field hospitals set up in bombed-out buildings. Emergency surgery performed in the back of moving ambulances. Your methods work when everything goes right, Lisa said. Our methods work when everything goes wrong. Meanwhile, Kevin was trying to explain human surgical techniques to a group of Zenth medical officers. They had gathered around his makeshift operating table, watching in fascination and horror as he worked. The key is to work fast and efficiently, Kevin said, demonstrating how to clamp blood vessels during surgery. Every second counts when someone is bleeding internally. One of the Zenth officers, a being named Krinal, asked about pain management. How do you perform such invasive procedures when the patient is conscious? Local anesthetic when we have it, Kevin replied. Pain medication if it's available. Sometimes the patient has to bite down on something and endure it. He showed them his emergency surgical kit, which contained basic tools for procedures that had to be done immediately. Scalpels for making incisions, clamps for stopping bleeding, sutures for closing wounds. But these tools are so primitive, Krinal observed. They require you to cut and stitch manually. Why not use molecular surgery or cellular welding? Because those technologies require complex equipment that weighs hundreds of pounds, Kevin said. Everything in this kit fits in a bag I can carry while running. He told them stories from his residency training when he had to learn surgery by practicing on actual patients. How young doctors worked 36-hour shifts making life or death decisions while exhausted and stressed. You learn to function under pressure because the alternative is letting people die, he explained. Medicine isn't always pretty or comfortable. Sometimes it's ugly and desperate. The aliens struggled to understand how humans could deliberately cause pain in order to heal. Their cultures had evolved advanced technology that made suffering unnecessary during medical treatment. The idea that healing sometimes required harm was completely foreign to them. Veltar spent hours reviewing footage of human medical procedures, trying to comprehend the philosophy behind them. The crystal being watched videos of battlefield surgery, emergency room trauma care, and disaster response medicine. They accept casualties, Veltar said to Zixtha as they watched human medics work. They decide who lives and who dies based on resources and probability of survival. This concept was perhaps the most shocking to the aliens. In galactic medicine, every patient received equal treatment regardless of their condition. The idea of triaging patients and letting some die to save others violated their basic ethical principles. How do they make such decisions, Zixtha wondered. How do they choose who deserves to live? Lisa overheard their conversation and joined them. We don't choose who deserves to live. We choose who we can save. If I have 1 dose of medicine and 2 patients, I give it to the one who has the best chance of surviving. She explained the concept of triage, which humans had developed during wartime. Patients were divided into categories based on the severity of their injuries and likelihood of survival. Resources went to those who could be saved, rather than those who were beyond help. It sounds cruel, Veltar said. You abandon the most severely injured. We save the ones we can, Lisa corrected. If I spend all my time trying to save someone who's going to die anyway, then 2 other people who could have lived will also die. As the rescue operation continued, the philosophical divide between human and alien medicine became more apparent. The aliens had developed compassionate, gentle healing methods that worked perfectly under ideal conditions. Humans had developed brutal, efficient techniques that worked when everything else failed. Neither approach was wrong, but they came from completely different worlds and experiences. The rescue operation took a dangerous turn when the mining facility's damaged reactor began showing warning signs. Red lights flashed throughout the complex, and automated warnings echoed through the corridors in multiple languages. Chief Engineer Rakton, A four-armed reptilian alien found the medical teams and delivered the bad news. The reactor containment system was damaged in the bombing. We are detecting increasing radiation levels and structural instability. Kevin looked up from his patient, a woman whose internal organs had been damaged by debris. How long do we have? Perhaps 6 hours before critical failure, Rakton replied. All personnel should evacuate immediately. Veltar began organizing the evacuation of patients to the alien medical ships parked safely outside the facility. The Zenth medical teams worked quickly to load stable patients onto floating stretchers and transport them to the sterile treatment facilities. We need to move everyone out now, Veltar told Lisa and Kevin. The radiation exposure is becoming dangerous. Lisa was treating a miner who had suffered severe burns and multiple fractures. Moving him would likely cause fatal shock, but staying meant exposing him to deadly radiation. This man won't survive transport, Lisa said. His blood pressure is too low and his injuries are too severe. Then we must do our best and hope he survives the journey, Veltar replied. We cannot risk the lives of our medical teams. Kevin was in the middle of removing shrapnel from another patient's chest cavity. The man was unconscious and breathing with the help of a makeshift ventilator Kevin had built from mining equipment. I need another 2 hours to finish this surgery, Kevin said. If I move him now, he'll die on the way to your ship. Jixtha used all 6 arms to help prepare patients for evacuation. Dr. Price, you must stop the procedure. We have protocols for situations like this. Your protocols assume everyone can be safely moved, Kevin replied, not taking his eyes off his surgical work. Sometimes people are too injured to evacuate. The alien medical teams continued loading patients onto their ships while radiation levels slowly climbed throughout the facility. Their equipment began showing contamination warnings, but the humans continued working in the danger zone. Lisa made a decision that shocked the aliens. I'm staying to treat the patients who can't be moved. You take the ones who have a chance of surviving transport. That is not acceptable, Veltar protested. You will be exposed to fatal radiation levels. These people will die if I leave. Them, Lisa said firmly. I became a medic to save lives, not to abandon patients when things get dangerous. Kevin agreed with her decision. I can't stop this surgery halfway through. This man trusted me to save his life. The aliens faced a choice they had never encountered before. Their medical protocols required them to evacuate all personnel from danger zones. Patient safety always came first, which meant removing everyone from harmful environments. But the human medical philosophy was different. Sometimes saving lives required accepting risks that violated safety protocols. Sometimes healers had to put themselves in danger to protect their patients. Veltar experienced a crisis that challenged everything the crystal being believed about medicine. The Zenth medic had spent decades following procedures designed to minimize risk and maximize patient comfort. Human methods seemed to violate every principle of safe medical practice. I cannot allow you to remain here, Veltar said. It goes against everything we stand for as healers. Then go, Lisa replied, checking the vital signs of her burn victim. But I'm not leaving these people to die alone. The radiation warnings grew more urgent as contamination spread through the facility. Emergency systems activated, sealing off sections of the complex and venting radioactive gases into space. Shixtha watched Lisa continue treating patients despite the increasing danger. The Corvani healer was experiencing internal conflict between its natural empathy and its medical training. Dr. Harper, please explain your reasoning, Shixtha said. Why do you risk your own life for patients who may not survive anyway? Lisa paused in her work to look at the 6-armed alien. Because that's what medics do. We don't abandon people just because the situation gets dangerous. She told Zixtha about human medics who had died treating wounded soldiers in combat zones. Doctors who had stayed in plague-infected cities to care for the sick. Medical teams who had worked in disaster areas despite the risk to their own lives. Your species learned to heal in safety, Lisa said. My species learned to heal in hell. As radiation levels continued to climb, something unexpected happened. Veltar made a decision that went against every protocol the crystal being had ever learned. I will stay and assist you, Veltar announced. If human patients can endure this environment, then I can learn to work in it as well. The decision shocked the other Zenth medics, but Veltar was determined to understand human medical philosophy. The crystal being had watched Lisa and Kevin work for hours in impossible conditions, saving lives that would have been lost under normal procedures. Jixtha also chose to remain, despite the emotional trauma of watching human surgical techniques. I cannot leave Dr. Harper to work alone. My people are healers, and healers do not abandon those in need. The alien medics had to adapt quickly to human methods. Veltar learned to assist with emergency surgery using improvised tools and poor lighting. The crystal being's natural precision was helpful when Kevin needed to remove small pieces of shrapnel from delicate organs. Jixtha overcame its species' natural empathy and helped Lisa with procedures that caused temporary pain to prevent greater harm. The Corvani learned to focus on long-term results rather than immediate comfort. I understand now why humans use tourniquets, Jixtha said while helping Lisa treat a severe leg wound. The pain is temporary, but the life saved is permanent. Working in the radiation zone forced the aliens to abandon their usual careful, methodical approach. They had to make quick decisions with incomplete information. They had to work with whatever tools were available rather than waiting for perfect equipment. Veltar found that human medical techniques were actually quite effective when applied correctly. Emergency surgery saved lives that would have been lost waiting for ideal conditions. Rapid triage allowed them to help more patients by focusing resources where they would do the most good. Your methods are not barbaric, Veltar told Kevin as they worked together to stabilize a critical patient. They are adapted to hostile environments. They are survival medicine. The reactor situation continued to deteriorate, but the mixed human-alien medical team managed to save everyone who could be saved. They worked together for 4 hours in dangerous conditions, using human techniques with alien precision and technology. When they finally evacuated the last patients, radiation levels had reached the point where longer exposure would have been fatal. But they had proven that different medical philosophies could work together when lives were at stake. The experience changed how the aliens viewed human medicine. What had seemed like primitive brutality was actually sophisticated adaptation to extreme circumstances. Human methods filled gaps that alien technology could not address. As they boarded the evacuation ships, Veltar and Jixtha had gained new respect for human medical philosophy. They had learned that sometimes the most compassionate action required the courage to cause temporary harm in service of preserving life. The mining facility's reactor was successfully stabilized by emergency engineering teams 2 hours after the last medical evacuation. All patients who could be saved had survived, thanks to the combined efforts of human and alien medical teams, working together under impossible conditions. Back aboard the Galactic Medical Consortium station, the medical bay was filled with recovering patients. The alien healing chambers worked alongside human post-operative care techniques. Advanced technology supported patients while human medical knowledge guided treatment decisions. Veltar sat in the station's main conference room, reviewing footage from the rescue operation. The crystal being watched human medics work with new understanding. What had once looked like barbarity now appeared as precisely adapted survival medicine. I was wrong about human medical methods, Veltar admitted to Lisa and Kevin. I thought, your techniques were primitive because they cause pain and appear violent. But I understand now that they evolved from necessity. The Zenth medic had spent days analyzing human medical history. Earth was a hostile planet where humans faced constant threats from disease, predators, natural disasters, and warfare. Their medicine had developed to save lives under the worst possible conditions. Your planet taught you to heal quickly and efficiently because waiting meant death, Veltar continued. My world gave us the luxury of time and perfect conditions. We never needed to learn your methods. Jixtha joined the conversation, moving more confidently on 6 legs than before. The Corvani healer had overcome much of its emotional sensitivity through working with human patients. I learned something important during the reactor crisis, Jixtha said. Sometimes causing small amounts of pain prevents much greater suffering. The tourniquet hurts, but it saves the limb. The surgery is traumatic, but it removes the disease. The 6-armed being had been practicing human medical techniques in the station's training facilities. Zixtha could now apply tourniquets, assist with emergency surgery, and make rapid triage decisions without fainting. My people always focused on eliminating all discomfort during treatment, Zixtha explained. But I see now that this is not always possible or even desirable. Sometimes discomfort is the price of survival. Kevin was working with a team of alien engineers to design new medical equipment that combined human efficiency with alien technology. They were creating portable surgical units that could work in any environment while maintaining the precision of advanced alien medicine. The key is adaptation, Kevin told the design team. Your technology is amazing, but it only works under perfect conditions. We need equipment that functions when everything goes wrong. They developed compact trauma kits that included both human-style instruments and miniaturized alien healing devices, emergency surgical robots that could operate in contaminated environments, portable life support systems that worked without external power or clean facilities. Lisa was establishing training programs to teach alien medics human emergency techniques. She had to overcome thousands of years of alien medical philosophy that prioritized comfort and perfection over speed and efficiency. The hardest part is teaching them to work under pressure, Lisa explained to Kevin. They're used to having all the time they need and perfect information before making decisions. She had set up training scenarios that simulated crisis conditions. Alien medics practiced emergency procedures while instructors created chaos around them. Loud noises, poor lighting, limited supplies, and time pressure forced them to adapt. Human methods. Some alien species adapted better than others. The Zenth, with their natural precision, became excellent emergency surgeons once they overcame their reluctance to cause pain. The Corvani learned to compartmentalize their empathy and focus on results rather than immediate comfort. Other species struggled more with human medical philosophy. The Velkari, who communicated through emotional telepathy, found it difficult to perform painful procedures on conscious patients. The Mortani, whose culture emphasized collective decision-making, could not adapt to the rapid individual choices required in emergency medicine. But slowly, a new hybrid medical philosophy began to emerge. It combined the best of human and alien approaches using advanced technology with battlefield efficiency, alien precision guided by human adaptability, gentle healing methods backed up by brutal emergency techniques. Dr. Price established the first trauma response units in galactic medicine. These teams were trained in both human and alien techniques, able to work in any environment from sterile medical facilities to active war zones. Every medical team should have both capabilities, Kevin argued at a Galactic Medical Council meeting. Beautiful technology for when everything goes right, and ugly techniques for when everything goes wrong. The Council was initially resistant to adopting human methods. Many alien species found the idea of deliberate medical trauma to be morally objectionable. But the success at the mining facility had proven the value of human techniques. Veltar became the first alien to successfully perform a human-style emergency amputation, the crystal being saved a construction worker whose arm had been caught in industrial machinery. The procedure was performed in a factory workshop with improvised tools and no anesthesia. I did not enjoy causing pain, Veltar reported afterward, but I focused on the result rather than the process. The worker lived because we acted quickly rather than waiting for ideal conditions. Jixtha developed new triage protocols that combined Corvani empathy with human efficiency. The six-armed healer could quickly assess patient emotions while making rapid treatment decisions based on survival probability. I learned to separate my feelings from my medical judgment, Jixtha explained. I still feel the patient's pain, but I do not let it prevent me from doing what is necessary to save their life. The integration of human and alien medicine was not without problems. Some alien medical professionals refused to adopt techniques they considered barbaric. Several species filed formal complaints about human methods violating their ethical standards. But emergency situations continued to prove the value of human adaptability. When a passenger liner suffered explosive decompression, human-trained alien medics saved hundreds of lives by performing emergency surgery in the damaged vessel rather than waiting for evacuation to proper medical facilities. A plague outbreak. on a remote mining world was controlled by medical teams using human field medicine techniques. They treated patients in contaminated environments using portable equipment, stopping the disease's spread through rapid response rather than perfect, sterile procedures. Each success story reinforced the lesson that different medical approaches were needed for different situations. Alien technology excelled at routine care and complex procedures performed under ideal conditions. Human techniques saved lives when ideal conditions were not available. The final validation came when the Galactic Medical Council officially adopted hybrid protocols as standard practice. All medical teams would be trained in both approaches, able to switch between gentle alien methods and brutal human techniques as circumstances required. Lisa and Kevin were appointed as the first human medical advisors to the Galactic Medical Consortium. Their job was to continue training alien medics in emergency techniques while learning from alien technology and methods. "We're not trying to make everyone practice medicine like humans," Lisa explained to a group of new alien medical students. "We're teaching you to have more options when people need help." The program expanded to include medical exchange students from dozens of alien species. Young healers learned that medicine was not just about advanced technology or perfect conditions. Sometimes it was about having the courage to cause temporary harm in order to prevent permanent loss. Veltar and Zixtha became instructors in the new program, teaching other aliens how to overcome their natural reluctance to cause pain during medical procedures. They shared their experiences from the mining facility rescue, explaining how human methods had saved lives that would have been lost using traditional alien techniques. The integration was not complete or universal. Many alien species continued to prefer their traditional gentle healing methods for routine medical care, but when disaster struck, when perfect conditions were not available, when time was running out, they now had human techniques to fall back on. The way humans treated battlefield injuries had initially made alien medics faint, but eventually, it taught them that healing sometimes required the courage to hurt in order to help. That medicine was not always gentle or beautiful, but it was always about preserving life by whatever means necessary.